The stars burned cold and distant above the cracked hull of my ship, the stellar wisp, drifting like a wounded beast through the void. I'd been out here for weeks, chasing whispers of a derelict freighter packed with rare isotopes, enough to buy me a decade of freedom from the grind of asteroid mining. Instead, I got a busted nav system, a flickering life support module, and a front row seat to the kind of cosmic loneliness that makes a man question his life choices. My name's Jace, by the way. Jace Carver, exobiologist turned scavenger, because studying alien bugs doesn't pay the bills. I was 32, scruffy, and stubborn enough to think I could outsmart the universe. Spoiler, the universe always wins. The distress beacon had been my first mistake. A faint, erratic pulse, barely distinguishable from background radiation, but it was coming from a planet not on any chart. My scanners called it Zovara, a name that sounded like it belonged in a fairy tale, not a nav database. No records, no colonies, no nothing, just a pale blue dot with an atmosphere that wouldn't kill me outright. I should have ignored it, turned tail, and limped back to the nearest outpost. But curiosity's a cruel mistress, and I've never been good at saying no to her. So, I pointed the wisp's nose at Zovara and prayed the engines wouldn't crap out before I hit the surface. The descent was a nightmare. Turbulence shook the ship like a dog with a bone, and the heat shields screamed as they burned through layers of atmosphere thicker than I'd expected. I landed, barely, in a clearing surrounded by towering, bioluminescent trees that pulsed with a soft, violet glow. The air outside was breathable, heavy with the scent of ozone and something sweet, like overripe fruit. My suit sensors chirped happily. Oxygen-rich, no toxins, gravity just a hair lighter than Earth's. I stepped out, boots sinking into moss that felt alive, squirming faintly underfoot. That's when I saw her. She stood at the edge of the clearing, half hidden in the shadow of those glowing trees, her silhouette framed by their eerie light. She was tall, maybe 7 feet, with a body that could have been sculpted by a Renaissance artist with a fetish for extraterrestrials. Her skin was pale as moonlight, shimmering faintly, and her hair, long, white, and flowing like liquid silver, caught the glow of the trees. She wore an outfit of furs, soft and sleek, that clung to her curves in a way that made my mouth dry. Pointed ears, delicate as a deer's, twitched slightly, and her eyes, huge, luminous, and the color of molten gold, locked onto me. I froze, not because I was scared, though I probably should have been, but because she was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Alien or not, she was a vision. "You are human," she said, her voice a low, musical hum that seemed to vibrate in my chest. She stepped closer, her movements fluid, almost predatory. "I am Lyra, daughter of Queen Zana, ruler of Zovara. You should not be here." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my cool. "Yeah, well, my ship had other plans. Name's Jace, just a guy looking for a way off this rock." Her lips curved into a smile that was equal parts dangerous and inviting. "Your kind is rare in these stars, Jace. My mother will want to see you. She has a fascination with humans." I didn't like the way she said, fascination. It sounded like the kind of word you use when someone's about to become a lab experiment or dinner. "Look, Lyra, I'm not here to cause trouble. Just need some fuel, maybe a spare part or two, and I'll be out of your hair, or, your fur." I gestured awkwardly at her outfit, instantly regretting it. Her laugh was soft, like wind chimes in a storm. "You are bold for a stranded creature. Come, mother awaits." She turned, her hair swaying like a comet's tail, and started walking into the forest. I hesitated, glancing back at the wisp. It wasn't going anywhere, not with its power core coughing up sparks. So I followed her, my heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with survival. The forest was alive in ways I couldn't explain. The trees pulsed with light, their branches swaying without wind, and faint whispers, like voices just out of reach, hummed in the air. Lyra moved with purpose, her bare feet silent on the moss, while I stumbled over roots that seemed to shift under me. "So, your mom's the queen, huh? What's she like?" I asked, trying to fill the silence. Lyra glanced back, her golden eyes gleaming. "She is commanding. She sees humans as curiosities, toys, perhaps, or treasures. It depends on her mood." "Great," I muttered. "Just what I need, a cosmic collector." She stopped abruptly, turning to face me. Her face was close now, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath, scented like that strange, sweet air. "You should be careful, Jace. Mother's desires are strong, but mine," she paused, her gaze flickering over me, lingering on my lips. "Mine may be stronger." My pulse kicked into overdrive. Was she flirting? Threatening? Both. Before I could figure it out, she turned and kept walking, leaving me to scramble after her. The forest opened into a vast city, towers of crystal and metal that shimmered like they were grown, not built. Zavarians moved through the streets, all tall, pale, and eerily beautiful, their eyes tracking me like I was a rare animal. I felt like a fish in a bowl, and Lyra was my only lifeline. We reached a palace that looked like it was carved from a single, massive gemstone. Its spires caught the starlight, refracting it into rainbows that danced across the ground. Guards in sleek, fur-lined armor stood at the entrance, their eyes narrowing as I approached. Lyra waved them off with a flick of her wrist, and they stepped aside. Inside, the air was cool, scented with something floral and intoxicating. The throne room was massive, its ceiling lost in a haze of glowing mist. And there, on a throne of polished obsidian, sat Queen Zana. She was Lyra's mirror, but sharper, older, more regal. Her hair was the same silver-white, but her eyes were a deep, unsettling violet, and her presence filled the room like a storm about to break. She rose, her fur robes trailing behind her, and studied me like I was a puzzle she couldn't wait to solve. "A human," she said, her voice rich and commanding. "How delightful. What brings you to my world, little one?" I opened my mouth to answer, but Lyra stepped forward, her hand brushing mine, a touch that sent a jolt through me. "He is mine, mother," she said, her tone defiant. "I found him first." Zana's eyes narrowed, and the air grew heavy, like the moment before lightning strikes. "Yours, daughter, we shall see." I stood there, caught between a queen who looked at me like I was a prize and her daughter, whose gaze promised something far more dangerous. My ship was busted, my options were zero, and I had the sinking feeling I'd just stumbled into a game I didn't know the rules to. But one thing was clear, on Zovara being human made me a rarity, and rarities I was starting to learn came with a price. The queen's voice broke the silence, smooth as silk but sharp as a blade. "Come closer, human, let me see you." Her words weren't a request, they were a command, and my feet moved before my brain could argue. Lyra's hand tightened on mine, a subtle warning, and I realized I wasn't just a guest here. I was a spark in a powder keg, and the fuse was already lit. The air in the throne room thickened, charged with an electric tension that made my skin prickle. Queen Zana's violet eyes bore into me, dissecting me like I was a specimen pinned to a board, while Lyra's hand lingered on mine, her fingers warm and possessive. I stood there, a lone human caught in a silent tug-of-war between a queen who radiated power and her daughter, whose gaze promised things I wasn't sure I was ready to unpack. My heart thudded, not just from the danger, but from the way Lyra's touch sent a current up my arm, like she was wired directly into my nervous system. I needed to tread carefully, but careful's never been my strong suit. Zana descended from her obsidian throne, her fur robes whispering against the polished floor. Each step was deliberate, her presence filling the room like a tide pulling everything toward her. "Jace," she said, my name rolling off her tongue like a caress wrapped in a threat. "A human so far from your fragile little worlds. Tell me, what makes you bold enough to stand before me?" I cleared my throat, trying to ignore the heat of Lyra's hand and the way her thumb grazed my knuckles, slow and deliberate. "Didn't have much choice, Your Majesty. My ship's a wreck and your planet wasn't exactly on my star charts. I'm just trying to get home." Lips curved, not quite a smile but something sharper, hungrier. "Home," she mused, circling me like a predator sizing up its prey. "Such a quaint notion. Zovara could be your home, Jace. A man like you, rare, resilient, could find purpose here." Her voice dropped, low and velvet smooth, and I swear I felt it in my bones. "I could give you purpose." Lyra's grip tightened, her nails digging faintly into my skin. "Mother," she said, her tone sharp enough to cut glass, "he is not yours to claim." Her golden eyes flicked to me, and for a moment I saw something raw in them, desire, defiance, maybe both. It was like staring into a star about to go supernova, beautiful and terrifying all at once. Zana paused, her gaze sliding to Lyra, and the air crackled with unspoken history. "Careful, daughter," she said softly, but there was steel beneath the words. "You challenge me for a stranger? A human, no less." She stepped closer to me, so close I could smell the faint, floral scent of her, like jasmine laced with something alien and intoxicating. Her hand lifted, fingers brushing the air just shy of my cheek. "He intrigues me, and you know how I adore intriguing things." I shifted, my mouth dry, caught between the queen's magnetic pull and Lyra's fierce claim. "Ladies," I said, forcing a grin to hide the fact that my pulse was racing like I'd just sprinted through a meteor shower. "I'm flattered, really. But maybe we could talk about getting my ship fixed before we start planning my future." Lyra's lips twitched, a hint of amusement breaking through her intensity, but Zana's eyes darkened. "Your ship," she said, "is a trivial matter. Zovara offers more than scraps of metal and fuel. Stay and you will see." She turned, gliding back to her throne, but her words lingered like a hook in my chest. Lyra tugged my hand, pulling me toward a side corridor before I could respond. The guards didn't move, but their eyes followed us, cold and unblinking. The corridor was narrower, its walls pulsing with the same bioluminescent veins as the forest outside, casting Lyra's face in a soft, violet glow. She didn't speak until we were out of earshot, her pace quick, her grip unrelenting. "You shouldn't have come here," she said finally, her voice low, almost a growl. "Mother doesn't let go of what she wants, and she wants you." I raised an eyebrow, trying to keep things light despite the way her words sent a shiver down my spine. "And what about you? Lyra, what do you want?" She stopped abruptly, pinning me against the wall with a speed that caught me off guard. Her body was close, too close, her curves pressed against me just enough to make my brain short-circuit. Those golden eyes searched mine, fierce and unguarded. "You're different," she said, her voice softer now, almost a whisper. "Humans, you burn so brightly, so briefly. I've watched your kind from afar, read your stories, your songs. You feel so much." Her fingers trailed up my arm, light as a feather but heavy with intent. "I want to know what that feels like." I swallowed hard, my body reacting faster than my mind could keep up. "Lyra, I'm just a guy with a busted ship. I don't know if I'm the one to show you whatever it is you're looking for." Her lips parted, and for a moment I thought she might kiss me. Instead, she leaned closer, her breath warm against my ear. "You're more than you think, Jace, and I'll prove it to you." Her words were a promise, laced with a heat that made my blood hum. Before I could respond, a low rumble shook the corridor, like the planet itself was groaning. Lyra's eyes widened and she pulled back, her playful demeanor replaced by sharp alertness. "What was that?" I asked, steadying myself against the wall as the vibrations faded. "Trouble," she said, her voice tight. She grabbed my hand again, pulling me deeper into the palace. "Come, we need to move." We ran through twisting corridors, the glowing walls pulsing faster now, like a heartbeat racing out of control. My mind was a mess, Lyra's touch, Zana's cryptic promises, and now this. The palace felt alive, its walls humming with energy, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us. Lyra led me to a balcony overlooking the city, where the crystal towers shimmered under a sky streaked with auroras. But the beauty was marred by a dark shape moving in the distance, a massive, writhing silhouette against the horizon, like a storm cloud come to life. "What the hell is that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's jaw tightened, her hand still gripping mine. "The Vian," she said, "a creature from the deep voids, it shouldn't be here." Her eyes met mine and I saw fear in them for the first time. "If it's awake, Zovara is in danger, and so are you." I stared at the writhing mass, my gut twisting. I'd faced pirates, rogue AIs, and collapsing asteroid mines, but this was something else, something ancient, alien, and wrong. Lyra's hand squeezed mine, grounding me in the moment. "Stay close," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I won't let it take you." I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't know what the Vian was or why it was here, but one thing was clear. Lyra wasn't just protecting me out of duty. There was something deeper, something that made her risk defying her mother and facing whatever that thing was. And as we stood there, her body pressed close to mine, her warmth cutting through the chill of the night, I realized I was in deeper than I'd ever planned. The Queen wanted me, sure, but Lyra? She was something else entirely, and I wasn't sure I could walk away from her, even if I wanted to. The Vian's shadow grew closer, its form resolving into a mass of writhing tendrils and glowing eyes that burned like dying stars. Lyra's hand tightened, her nails biting into my skin, and I knew this was about to get a whole lot worse. The Vian's shadow loomed larger, its writhing tendrils coiling against the aurora-streaked sky, like a nightmare-given form. Its eyes, hundreds of them, glowing like molten embers, locked onto the city, and a low, bone-rattling hum vibrated through the air, making my teeth ache. Lyra's grip on my hand was a lifeline, her nails biting into my skin as we stood on the balcony overlooking Zovara's shimmering towers. Her warmth pressed against me, a stark contrast to the icy dread curling in my gut. I'd seen plenty of weird in my years scavenging the galaxy, but this thing, it was wrong in a way that made my instincts scream to run. Except there was nowhere to go, not with my ship in pieces and a queen and her daughter playing cosmic chess with me as the prize. "Lyra," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "what the hell is that thing, and why is it looking at us like we're dinner?" Her golden eyes flicked to me, sharp with urgency but softened by something I couldn't quite name. "The Vian is a relic of the void," she said, her voice low and taut, "a devourer of worlds. It hasn't stirred in centuries, not since my ancestors bound it to the depths of Zovara's core. If it's awake now," she trailed off, her gaze darting to the creature as its tendrils lashed out, shattering a distant crystal spire with a sound like 1,000 breaking mirrors. I swallowed hard, my mind racing. "So what woke it up, and why is it picking now to throw a tantrum?" Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a moment I thought she wouldn't answer. Then she turned to me, her face so close I could see the faint shimmer of her skin like stardust caught in moonlight. "You," she said softly, "you're a rival. Humans, your energy is different. Raw, unbound. It must have sensed you, drawn to your presence like a moth to flame." "Great," I muttered, rubbing the back of my neck. "So I'm a cosmic bug zapper. Any chance we can send it back to nap time?" Her lips twitched, a ghost of a smile, but it vanished as the Vian let out a shriek that tore through the air like a blade. The city below erupted into chaos, Zavarians running, their silver hair glinting as they fled, while guards in fur-lined armor rushed toward the creature, wielding weapons that hummed with plasma. Lyra grabbed my arm, pulling me back from the balcony's edge. "We need to get to the Spire of Binding," she said. "It's the only place we can stop it." "Stop it?" I followed her as she sprinted down the corridor, her movements fluid and predatory despite the panic. "Lyra, I'm a scavenger, not a monster hunter. You got a plan, or are we just winging it?" She glanced back, her eyes blazing with a mix of fear and determination. "The spire holds the ancient seals. If we can activate them, we can bind the Vian again. But it won't be easy." Her voice dropped, and she slowed, her hand brushing my chest as she stopped to face me. "Jace, your energy, it's the key. The seals respond to life force, and yours, it's stronger than anything we have." I blinked, caught off guard by the intensity in her gaze and the way her fingers lingered, warm and deliberate, against my jacket. "You're saying I'm some kind of alien battery. That's not reassuring." She stepped closer, her body inches from mine, and the air between us crackled with something more than just the Vian's distant roars. "You're more than you know," she whispered, her breath grazing my jaw. "I felt it the moment I saw you. Mother wants you for her collection, but I—" Her words hung there, unfinished, as another tremor shook the palace, sending shards of crystal raining from the ceiling. "Lyra, focus." I grabbed her shoulders, more to steady myself than her. "Where's this spire, and how do we not die getting there?" She nodded, snapping back to the moment, and led me through a maze of glowing corridors, the walls pulsing frantically now, like the palace itself was panicking. We burst out into a courtyard where the air was thick with the scent of ozone and burning metal. The Vian was closer now, its tendrils lashing at the city's outer walls, each strike sending shockwaves that cracked the ground beneath us. Zavarian guards fought back, their plasma lances carving glowing arcs through the air, but the creature barely flinched, its eyes fixed on the palace on me. Lyra pulled me toward a sleek, hover-like vehicle parked near the courtyard's edge. It was all curves and shimmering metal, like something grown rather than built. She leapt into the pilot's seat, her fingers dancing over controls that looked like liquid light. "Get in," she barked, and I didn't argue, scrambling into the seat beside her as the craft hummed to life. The vehicle shot forward, weaving through the city's chaos with a speed that pressed me back into the seat. Lyra's hair whipped in the wind, her face set in fierce concentration as she dodged falling debris and screaming civilians. I gripped the edge of my seat, trying not to think about how close those tendrils were getting. "So, this spire," I shouted over the roar of the engine. "What happens when we get there?" I just plug myself into some ancient alien machine and hope for the best. She shot me a look, half exasperated, half amused. "It's not that simple. The seals require a sacrifice, a spark of life to anchor them. Your energy is potent, but it's dangerous. If we misjudge," she hesitated, her hands tightening on the controls. "You could burn out." "Burn out?" My stomach dropped. "As in dead, Lyra, you're not selling this plan very well." Her eyes softened, and for a moment the chaos around us faded. "I won't let that happen," she said, her voice fierce. "I swear it, Jace, you're too important to Zovara to me." Her hand reached out, brushing mine, and the touch was like a spark, igniting something deep in my chest. I wanted to ask what she meant, why she cared so much, but the Vian's roar cut me off, closer now, its shadow swallowing the city behind us. We reached the spire, a towering structure of twisted crystal that pulsed with a deep, resonant hum. It stood alone in a barren plain just outside the city, its surface etched with glowing runes that flickered like dying stars. Lyra landed the craft hard, the impact jarring my teeth, and we stumbled out into air thick with static. The Vian was almost on us now, its tendrils tearing through the city's edge, its eyes burning with a hunger that made my skin crawl. Lyra grabbed my hand, pulling me toward the spire's entrance, a massive archway carved with symbols that seemed to writhe under my gaze. "Inside," she said, her voice urgent. "We don't have much time." But as we reached the archway, a figure stepped out of the shadows, blocking our path. Queen Zana, her violet eyes blazing, her fur robes billowing in the wind. "Going somewhere, daughter?" she asked, her voice cold as the void. "You think to save this human, to use him for the seals?" Her gaze shifted to me, and I felt it like a physical weight. "He is mine, Lyra, and I will not let you risk him or Zovara for your foolish whims." Lyra stepped in front of me, her body taut, her voice a low growl. "You don't understand, Mother. He's the only one who can stop this, and I won't let you take him." Zana's smile was sharp, predatory. "We shall see, daughter." She raised a hand, and the air around us shimmered, a barrier of energy crackling into existence, trapping us between her and the approaching Vian. The creature's roar shook the ground, and I realized we were out of time. Lyra's hand tightened on mine, her eyes locked on her mother's, and I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about power, defiance, and a bond I was only beginning to understand, one that might save us all or burn us to ash. The energy barrier crackled around us, a shimmering cage of light that trapped Lyra and me in a standoff with Queen Zana. Her violet eyes glinted with a mix of amusement and menace, while the Vian's roars grew louder, its writhing tendrils now close enough to cast jagged shadows across the barren plain. The spire of binding loomed behind Zana, its runes pulsing erratically, as if the ancient seals were straining under the creature's approach. Lyra stood firm in front of me, her silver hair whipping in the wind, her body a taut shield against her mother's will. My hand was still in hers, her grip fierce, and I could feel the heat of her skin even through the chaos. I was caught in a cosmic soap opera, and I wasn't sure if I was the hero, the prize, or just the guy about to get squashed by a giant space squid. "Mother, stop this." Lyra's voice cut through the wind, sharp and defiant. "The Vian will destroy everything if we don't act. Jace is the key, you know it." Zana's smile widened, but it held no warmth. "Oh, daughter, I know exactly what he is. A rare spark, a human whose life force burns brighter than any Zovarian's. But you think to use him in the Spire's ritual?" She stepped closer, the barrier humming louder as she moved, her robes trailing like liquid night. "You're too impulsive, Lyra, reckless. He belongs with me, where his potential can be nurtured." "Nurtured?" I blurted, unable to keep quiet despite the very real possibility of being zapped by whatever alien tech Zana was wielding. "Lady, no offense, but your version of nurturing feels like it comes with a leash and a display case." Lyra's head snapped toward me, her golden eyes wide with what I hoped was amusement and not horror. Zana paused, her gaze sliding to me, and for a heart-stopping moment, I thought I'd just signed my own death warrant. Then she laughed, a rich, throaty sound that made my skin tingle in ways I didn't want to examine too closely. "Such spirit," she purred, tilting her head. "You'll be a delightful addition to my court, Jace, once we've dealt with this inconvenience." She waved a hand toward the Vian as if it were a minor pest and not a city-devouring monstrosity. "Mother, enough." Lyra's voice cracked like a whip, and she stepped forward, dragging me with her. The barrier sparked where her shoulder brushed it, and she winced but didn't back down. "You can't control him, and you can't stop the Vian without him. Let us pass, or Zovara falls." The tension was thick enough to choke on, and I could feel the weight of their stares, Zana's calculating, Lyra's desperate. The Vian's roars were deafening now, its tendrils tearing through the outer city, sending plumes of crystal dust into the air. I needed to do something, anything, to break this stalemate before we all ended up as monster chow, so naturally I went with the dumbest idea in my playbook. "Hey, Zana," I said, stepping forward and trying to ignore the way Lyra's nails dug into my arm in warning. "If I'm so special, how about a deal? Let us try the Spire thing. If it works, great, I save your planet. If it doesn't, I'm all yours, no fuss, no muss." I flashed what I hoped was a charming grin, though it probably looked more like a grimace. "What's a queen got to lose?" Lyra's jaw dropped, and I could practically hear her thinking, "Are you insane?" Zana's eyes narrowed, and for a moment I was sure she'd vaporize me just for the audacity. Then, to my shock, she laughed again, this time with a hint of genuine amusement. "A bargain from a human?" She tilted her head, studying me like I was a puzzle she hadn't expected to enjoy solving. "Very well, Jace, I'll allow it. But if you fail, you'll be mine, body, soul, and spark." Her voice dripped with promise, and I felt a shiver that was equal parts fear and something I really didn't want to name. "Deal," I said, before Lyra could protest. The barrier flickered and vanished, and Zana stepped aside, her smile sharp enough to cut. Lyra shot me a look that could have melted steel, but she didn't let go of my hand as she pulled me toward the spire's archway. "Are you out of your mind?" she hissed as we ducked inside, the glowing runes casting eerie shadows across her face. "You just bet your life against a void beast and my mother." "Yeah, well, I'm not great at long-term planning," I said, trying to lighten the mood as we raced down a spiraling staircase, the air growing colder and heavier with each step. "Besides, you said I'm the key, right? So let's unlock this thing and not die." Lyra's lips twitched, and for a second I thought I saw a spark of admiration in her eyes. "You're impossible," she muttered, but her grip softened, her thumb brushing my knuckles in a way that made my heart stutter. "Don't make me regret this, Jace." The staircase opened into a vast chamber, its walls lined with pulsating crystals that hummed with a rhythm like a heartbeat. At the center stood a pedestal, its surface etched with runes that glowed brighter as we approached. Above it, a sphere of light hovered, swirling with colors I couldn't name. The air was thick with energy, pressing against my skin like a living thing. Outside, the Vian's roars shook the spire, and I could hear the distant crack of crystal towers crumbling. Lyra stopped at the pedestal, her hands trembling as she traced the runes. "This is it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The seal of binding. It needs your energy to activate, but—" She turned to me, her eyes searching mine, and I saw fear there, raw and unguarded. "It could kill you, Jace. The seals are ancient, unstable. I didn't want to tell you, but—" "Hey," I interrupted, stepping closer and resting a hand on her arm. Her skin was warm, almost too warm, and I could feel the rapid pulse beneath it. "I'm not planning on checking out today. Let's do this, okay? You and me against the big bad squid." She stared at me, her golden eyes shimmering with something that made my chest tighten. Then, in a move that caught me completely off guard, she grabbed my jacket, pulled me close, and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. Her lips were fierce, hungry, tasting of that strange, sweet air I'd first noticed on Zovara. My hands found her waist, the soft fur of her outfit brushing my fingers, and for a moment the world narrowed to just us, the hum of the spire fading beneath the rush of blood in my ears. She pulled back, breathless, her cheeks flushed a faint silver. "For luck," she said, her voice husky, "and because I wanted to." I grinned, my head spinning. "Well, damn, Lyra, if that's your idea of luck, I'm gonna need a lot more of it." Her laugh was soft, almost lost in the Vian's next roar, but it was enough to make me feel like we might actually pull this off. She turned back to the pedestal, her fingers moving faster now, activating the runes with a series of precise touches. The sphere above us pulsed, and I felt a pull, like something was reaching into my chest and tugging at my core. It wasn't painful, not yet, but it was intense, like standing too close to a star. "Place your hand here," Lyra said, guiding me to a smooth panel on the pedestal. Her fingers lingered on mine, and I couldn't tell if it was reassurance or reluctance. "When I activate the seal, it'll draw on your energy. Stay focused, Jace, stay you." I nodded, my mouth dry as I pressed my hand against the panel. The runes flared, and the pull became a torrent, a rush of heat and light that made my vision blur. Outside, the Vian screamed, closer now, its tendrils hammering the spire's walls. Lyra's hand stayed on mine, her eyes locked on me, and I realized she wasn't just guiding me, she was anchoring me, her touch the only thing keeping me from being swept away by whatever ancient power was coursing through me. But then the chamber shook, and a crack split the ceiling, showering us with crystal shards. Lyra gasped, pulling me down as a tendril punched through the wall, its glowing eyes locking onto me. The seal's energy surged, and I felt it, my life, my spark, draining into the machine. And in that moment, with Lyra's hand in mine and the Vian bearing down, I knew this was about to get a lot messier than a bad bet with a queen. The spire trembled as the Vian's tendril smashed through the wall, its glowing eyes burning into me like a predator sizing up its next meal. Crystal shards rained down, glinting in the pulsing light of the runes, and the air crackled with raw energy from the seal of binding. My hand pressed against the pedestal's smooth panel, the ancient machine pulling at my core with a force that made my vision swim. It was like my soul was being siphoned, a dizzying rush that left me gasping. Lyra's hand clung to mine, her touch a fierce anchor in the chaos, her golden eyes wide with fear and determination. Her lips, still warm from that unexpected kiss, hovered close, and despite the looming threat of the Vian, my body hummed with the memory of her taste, sweet, wild, and utterly alien. "Jace, hold on." Lyra's voice cut through the roar of the collapsing chamber, sharp and urgent. Her fingers tightened, her nails grazing my skin, sending a jolt through me that was equal parts pain and something dangerously close to desire. The seal's energy surged, a white-hot current that made my knees buckle, but Lyra pressed herself closer, her body aligning with mine, her warmth grounding me against the pull. "You're doing it," she whispered, her breath hot against my cheek. "The seal is responding, just a little longer." I gritted my teeth, trying to focus on her voice instead of the Vian's shrieks or the way my heart pounded, not just from the ritual but from her nearness. Her fur-clad curves brushed against me, deliberate or not, and my mind flickered to that kiss, to the hunger in it. "Lyra," I managed, my voice rough, "if we're about to die, you owe me another one of those kisses." Her eyes flicked to mine, a spark of amusement breaking through her intensity. "Survive this, human, and I'll give you more than a kiss." Her words were a promise, low and husky, and they hit me like a shot of adrenaline. My pulse spiked, and the seal pulsed in response, the runes glowing brighter as if feeding on whatever was sparking between us. The Vian's tendril lashed again, smashing another section of the wall, and Lyra pulled me down behind the pedestal, her body shielding mine as debris flew. We were pressed together now, her chest rising and falling against me, her silver hair falling like a curtain around us. The air was thick with dust and the electric hum of the seal, but all I could feel was her heat, her strength, the way her fingers traced my arm, steadying me even as the world fell apart. "Lyra," I said, my voice barely audible over the chaos, "this thing's gonna drain me dry. If I'm going out, I need to know, why me? Why risk everything for some random human?" She looked at me, her golden eyes softening, and for a moment, the Vian's roars faded to a distant hum. "You're not random," she said, her hand sliding to my chest, resting over my racing heart. "I've studied your kind, Jace, your passion, your fire. It's unlike anything on Zovara. We live long, but we feel less. You burn so brightly, and she hesitated, her fingers curling against me, her touch sending a shiver down my spine. "I want to feel that fire. With you." Her words hit harder than the Vian's blows, and before I could stop myself, I leaned in, capturing her lips again. This kiss was slower, deeper, a tangle of need and desperation that made the world narrow to just us. Her hands slid up my back, pulling me closer, her body soft yet unyielding against mine. The fur of her outfit brushed my skin, a teasing contrast to the heat of her touch, and I felt a surge of something primal, something that made the seal's pull feel like a candle next to a star. She tasted of that strange, sweet air, of danger and desire, and I wanted more of her, more of this moment, even if it was the last. The seal flared, the sphere above us exploding with light, and I gasped, pulling back as the energy ripped through me. Lyra's hand stayed on me, steadying me, her eyes locked on mine. "You're doing it," she said, her voice trembling with awe. "The seal, it's binding the Vian. Keep going, Jace." I nodded, my head spinning, my body caught between the seal's relentless pull and the fire Lyra had ignited. The Vian screamed, its tendrils thrashing outside, but the runes were glowing now, a steady, brilliant white that pulsed in time with my heartbeat. Lyra's hands slid to my face, her thumbs brushing my jaw, and she pressed her forehead to mine, her breath mingling with mine. "Stay with me," she whispered, her voice a lifeline. "You're stronger than you know." The intimacy of the moment was overwhelming, her touch, her words, the way her body fit against mine like we were two pieces of a puzzle. It wasn't just physical, it was like she was reaching into me, pulling at the same spark the seal was draining. I wanted to lose myself in her, to forget the Vian, the spire, the queen waiting outside to claim me. But the chamber shook again, and a tendril punched through the ceiling, its glowing eyes locking onto us. Lyra's grip tightened, and she pushed me back, her body shielding mine as the seal's energy surged to a crescendo. "Jace now," she shouted, guiding my hand back to the panel. The runes blazed, and I felt it, a connection, not just to the seal but to her, like our energies were entwining, amplifying each other. The Vian's screams grew desperate, its movements slowing as the seal's light enveloped it, pulling it back toward the void. My vision blurred, my strength fading, but Lyra's touch kept me grounded, her lips brushing my ear as she whispered, "You're doing it. You're saving us." The seal's pull was unbearable now, a burning in my chest that made me wonder if I'd have anything left when this was over. Lyra's hands were everywhere, my shoulders, my face, my chest, her touch a desperate plea to keep me here with her. The Vian's roars faded, replaced by a low hum as the seal locked into place, its runes glowing steady and calm. The creature's tendrils retreated, its eyes dimming as it sank back into the darkness beyond the spire. I collapsed against the pedestal, my breath ragged, my body trembling from the strain. Lyra caught me, her arms wrapping around me, her body pressed close as she eased me to the ground. "You did it," she whispered, her voice thick with relief and something deeper. Her fingers brushed my hair, her lips grazing my forehead, and I felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the seal. "You're still here." Barely, I croaked, managing a weak grin. That was intense. My eyes met hers, and I saw it, the raw, unguarded need in her gaze, the same fire that had sparked between us moments ago. I reached up, my hand finding her cheek, and she leaned into it, her skin soft and warm under my fingers. "We're not done yet," she said, her voice low, her eyes flickering to the archway where Zana's shadow loomed. "Mother will come for you now, she'll want her prize." I chuckled despite the exhaustion. "Guess I'm popular. But Lyra," I pulled her closer, my voice dropping to a whisper, "I'm not going anywhere without you." Her lips curved, a mix of defiance and desire, and she kissed me again, soft and lingering, a promise of what was to come. The spire was quiet now, but the air still hummed with tension, and I knew this was far from over. Zana was waiting, and whatever she had planned, it wasn't going to be as simple as a thank you and a handshake. Lyra's kiss lingered on my lips, a soft, electric promise that anchored me to the moment despite the exhaustion pulling at my bones. The spire's chamber was eerily silent now. The Vian's roars faded to nothing, its monstrous form sealed back into the void by the ancient runes still glowing faintly on the pedestal. I leaned against Lyra, her arms steady around me, her silver hair brushing my cheek as she held me close. Her warmth was a lifeline, her scent, sweet and wild, like Zovara's air, keeping me grounded. But the shadow of Queen Zana loomed in the archway, her presence a storm waiting to break. I could feel her violet eyes on us, sharp and unyielding, and the weight of her claim made my skin prickle. I'd just saved her planet, but I had a sinking feeling that wasn't going to earn me a free pass. Lyra pulled back slightly, her golden eyes searching mine, a mix of relief and defiance flickering in them. "We need to move," she whispered, her voice low but urgent. "Mother won't wait long. She'll want to collect her prize." Her fingers tightened on my arm, and the way she said prize sent a shiver through me, not entirely unpleasant, but definitely complicated. I managed a crooked grin, my voice hoarse from the seal's drain. "Yeah, well, she's gonna have to get in line. I'm kinda partial to the daughter who just helped me not die." Lyra's lips curved, a flash of warmth breaking through her tension, but before she could respond, a low hum filled the chamber. Not the seal this time, but something deeper, older, like the planet itself was stirring. The runes on the walls flickered, their glow stuttering, and a faint tremor shook the floor. Lyra's eyes widened, her hand dropping to the dagger at her hip, its blade etched with the same glowing symbols as the spire. "That's not right," she said, her voice sharp. "The seal should be stable, something's wrong." I pushed myself upright, my legs wobbly but holding. "What kind of wrong? Like, oops, we forgot a rune wrong, or the giant squids coming back for round 2 wrong?" She didn't answer, her gaze darting to the pedestal where the sphere of light was pulsing erratically, its colors shifting from serene white to a deep, angry red. The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest, and a faint whisper like the voices I'd heard in the forest crawled into my ears, unintelligible but urgent. Lyra's hand found mine again, her grip fierce, and she pulled me toward the pedestal. "Stay close," she said, her voice tight. "We need to check the core." We reached the pedestal, its surface warm under my fingers, and Lyra's hands moved swiftly, tracing the runes with a precision that spoke of years of training. But as she worked, the whispers grew louder, forming words I couldn't understand but felt in my gut, ancient, angry, alive. The sphere pulsed faster, and a crack split the air, not from the Vian but from the pedestal itself. A shard of crystal broke free, hovering before us, and in its faceted surface I saw something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't a reflection of the chamber or of us. It was a face, human but not quite. My face, but older, weathered, with eyes that glowed like the Vian's, burning with a hunger that wasn't mine. The image flickered, and I saw myself standing over Zovara's city, the towers crumbling, the sky torn open, and Lyra on her knees, her golden eyes dull, her hands reaching for me as if I were her salvation or her doom. "What the hell is that?" I choked out, stumbling back, my heart hammering. Lyra grabbed my arm, her nails digging in, her face pale as she stared at the shard. "It's a vision," she said, her voice trembling. "The spire, it doesn't just bind the Vian, it sees, it knows." She turned to me, her eyes wide with horror. "Jace, it's showing us what could be, what you could become." "Become?" I laughed, but it came out shaky, almost manic. "Lyra, I'm a scavenger, not some galaxy-destroying warlord. That's not me." But even as I said it, the seal's pull tugged at me again, weaker now but still there like a hook in my chest. The vision shifted, showing me standing beside Zana, her hand on my shoulder, her smile triumphant as Zovara's people bowed before us. Then it flickered again, and I saw Lyra, her body entwined with mine, not in the spire but somewhere else. Somewhere dark, intimate, her lips whispering my name as the stars burned above us. The images were a whirlwind, each one pulling me in a different direction, and I couldn't tell if they were warnings or promises. Lyra's hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet her gaze. "Jace, listen to me," she said, her voice fierce, cutting through the whispers. "The spire is testing you. It's using your energy, your spark to show possibilities. But you choose what happens, you're not her pawn or mine." Her thumb brushed my cheek, soft but urgent, and I felt that fire again, the one that sparked every time she touched me. Before I could respond, the chamber shook violently, and the shard shattered, its fragments dissolving into light. The whispers stopped, replaced by a new sound, footsteps, deliberate and heavy, echoing from the archway. Zana stepped into the chamber, her fur robes trailing like a storm cloud, her violet eyes locked on me with an intensity that made my skin crawl. "Impressive," she said, her voice smooth as silk but sharp as a blade. "You've bound the Vian, human, but you've also awakened something far older, far more dangerous. Lyra stepped in front of me, her dagger drawn, its blade glowing faintly. "What have you done, Mother?" she demanded, her voice shaking with anger. "The spire was stable until you interfered." Zana's smile was cold, predatory. "Interfered? No, daughter, I merely guided the spire's vision. The human's energy is too potent to waste on a mere binding." She stepped closer, her eyes never leaving mine, and I felt it, a pull, not from the seal but from her, like she was reaching into my mind, tugging at the same spark the spire had latched onto. "Jace, you could be more than a savior, you could be a god." The words hit like a punch, and the vision's images flashed through my mind. Me, ruling beside her, Zovara at my feet. But then I felt Lyra's hand in mine, her warmth cutting through the haze, and I saw her in that other vision, her body pressed against mine, her eyes full of trust and desire. The contrast was dizzying, and I realized the twist. The spire wasn't just showing me possibilities. It was showing me a choice, Zana's power or Lyra's fire. "Mother, stop!" Lyra's voice was a growl, her dagger raised, but Zana waved a hand, and an invisible force pushed Lyra back, pinning her against the wall. I lunged forward, my exhaustion forgotten, but Zana's power held me in place, her eyes boring into mine. "Choose, Jace," she said, her voice a low, seductive hum. "Join me and Zovara will be yours. Refuse and you'll lose everything, including her." Her gaze flicked to Lyra, who was struggling against the invisible bonds, her eyes blazing with defiance. The spire's runes pulsed again, and I felt the seal's energy stir, not draining me now, but amplifying something inside me, something raw, powerful, and dangerously tempting. Lyra's voice broke through, weak but fierce. "Jace, don't listen to her. You're not her tool, you're mine." Her words, raw and unguarded, hit harder than Zana's promises, and in that moment, I knew the spire's vision wasn't just a warning. It was a trap, one Zana had set to claim me. And the only way out was to choose, not power, not godhood, but the woman who'd risked everything to stand by me. The spire's chamber pulsed with an eerie rhythm, its runes casting jagged shadows as Queen Zana's power held me frozen, her violet eyes boring into mine like they could unravel my soul. Lyra struggled against the invisible bonds pinning her to the wall, her silver hair tangled, her golden eyes blazing with a mix of fury and desperation. Her words, "You're mine," echoed in my chest, a lifeline against the seductive pull of Zana's promise of godhood. The air crackled with tension, the seal's energy still humming through me, amplifying every emotion until I felt like I was standing on the edge of a star, one wrong step from burning up. I was just a scavenger, not cut out for cosmic power plays, yet here I was, caught between a queen who wanted to crown me and her daughter who'd already claimed my heart. And somehow, I had to navigate this without screwing it all up. "Choose, Jace," Zana repeated, her voice a velvet blade, slicing through the haze. She stepped closer, her fur robes brushing the floor, her presence overwhelming, like gravity itself was bending toward her. "Power, purpose, eternity, Zovara at your feet," or, her gaze flicked to Lyra, her smile sharp and mocking. A fleeting spark with my defiant daughter doomed to fade. Lyra's growl cut through the air, low and feral, as she strained against Zana's hold. "Jace, don't." Her voice cracked, raw with emotion, and the sight of her fighting for me, for us, hit harder than any vision the spire could conjure. I wanted to reach for her, to break whatever hold Zana had, but my body wouldn't move, pinned by the queen's invisible grip. My heart raced, and the seal's energy surged in response, a burning pulse that made my vision blur. I needed a plan fast, but my brain was stuck on how I'd gone from scavenging scrap to starring in an alien family drama. "Okay, Zana," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady despite the pressure crushing my chest. "Gotta say, the godhood pitch is tempting, big throne, adoring fans. Probably a killer view. But I'm more of a keep-it-real kinda guy. You know, fixing ships, cracking bad jokes, maybe stealing a kiss or two." I shot Lyra a glance, hoping she caught the attempt at levity, but her eyes were locked on her mother, fierce and unyielding. Zana's smile faltered, just for a second, and I seized the moment, leaning into the only weapon I had, sheer human stubbornness. "Also, no offense, Your Majesty, but you're giving off serious collecting rare pets vibes, and I'm not big on cages. So, how about you let Lyra go, and we talk this out like reasonable, beings?" Lyra's lips twitched, a spark of amusement breaking through her fury, but Zana's eyes darkened, her hand rising as the air around me tightened, squeezing my ribs like a vice. "You jest, human," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "But your defiance only makes you more intriguing." She stepped closer, her fingers grazing the air near my face, and I felt a pull, not just physical but mental, like she was tugging at my thoughts, trying to reshape them. The spire's runes flared, and the vision from before flickered in my mind. Me, ruling beside her, Zovara bowing. It was tempting, intoxicating, and for a heartbeat, I wavered. "Jace!" Lyra's shout snapped me back, her voice raw with urgency. She'd managed to shift, her dagger now scraping the wall, its glowing blade sparking against Zana's barrier. "You're stronger than her, fight it!" Her words were a jolt, grounding me in the memory of her kiss, her touch, the fire in her eyes. I focused on her and pushed against Zana's hold, my muscles straining as the seal's energy burned hotter in my chest. "Sorry, Zana," I grunted, my voice tight with effort. "I'm already spoken for." Zana's face twisted, a flash of rage breaking her regal mask, but before she could respond, the spire shook violently, the runes pulsing erratically. A low, guttural hum rose from the floor, and the pedestal cracked, a jagged line splitting its surface. The sphere above us flickered, its red glow intensifying, and the whispers returned, louder, angrier, speaking in a language that made my head throb. Lyra's dagger finally broke through the barrier, and she stumbled forward, catching herself against me. Her body pressed close, her breath ragged, and for a moment we just held each other, the world trembling around us. "What now?" I asked, my voice muffled against her hair. "Because I'm guessing the spire throwing a tantrum isn't part of the plan." Lyra pulled back, her eyes scanning the chamber, her hand still gripping mine. "The seal's destabilizing," she said, her voice tense. "Your energy, it's too much. It's waking something else, something deeper than the Vian." She turned to the pedestal, her fingers tracing the crack, and her face paled. "The core, it's alive." "Alive?" I stared at her, my brain struggling to keep up. "Like cute alien pet alive, or we're about to get eaten alive?" She didn't answer, her focus on the pedestal as the runes pulsed faster, the air growing thick with static. Zana's laughter broke the silence, cold and triumphant. "You see, daughter, you thought to use him to save us, but you've only unleashed chaos." She stepped forward, her power flaring, and the barrier reformed, weaker but still there, trapping us near the pedestal. "The core feeds on life, Jace, your life, and when it's done you'll be mine, whether you choose it or not." Lyra spun, her dagger raised, but I grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "Wait," I said, my mind racing. "If the core's alive, maybe we can, I don't know, talk to it, reason with it. I mean, I've talked my way out of worse." I flashed a grin, hoping to ease the tension, but it came out more like a grimace. "Okay, maybe not worse, but I'm good at improvising." Lyra's eyes softened, a flicker of warmth amidst the chaos. "You're impossible," she said, but there was a hint of a smile, and she squeezed my hand. "If we're going to try this, we do it together. The core responds to energy, yours and mine. Link with me." "Link?" I raised an eyebrow, my brain immediately going to places it probably shouldn't given the circumstances. Like, hold hands and sing campfire songs, or... Her laugh was quick, a burst of light in the darkness. "Focus," she said, but her cheeks flushed a faint silver, and she pulled me closer, her hands guiding mine to the cracked pedestal. "Open your mind. Let me in." I nodded, my heart pounding as her fingers interlaced with mine, her touch sending a familiar heat through me. The seal's energy surged again, but this time it wasn't just pulling. It was connecting, weaving my spark with Lyra's, her presence a steady flame against my flickering one. The whispers grew louder, forming images in my mind. A vast, sentient force beneath Zovara, ancient and hungry, awakened by my arrival. It wasn't evil, but it was relentless, and it wanted more life, more power, more of me. Zana's voice cut through, sharp and commanding. "You cannot control it, daughter. Step aside and let me guide him. He'll burn out otherwise." Lyra's grip tightened, her body pressed against mine, her lips brushing my ear. "Don't listen to her," she whispered, her voice fierce and intimate. "You're mine, Jace, and I'm not letting go." The core's hum grew deafening, the runes blazing, and I felt it. A choice, not just between Zana and Lyra, but between giving in to the core's hunger or fighting for something real, something human. With Lyra's fire in my veins and Zana's shadow at my back, I knew this was about to get messy, and probably a lot weirder than I'd ever bargained for. The core's hum vibrated through the spire, a relentless pulse that shook the air and made my bones ache. Lyra's hands were locked with mine on the cracked pedestal, her fingers woven tightly through my own, her warmth a defiant spark against the overwhelming force surging through us. The runes blazed, casting jagged light across her face, her golden eyes fierce with determination as she pressed closer, her body a shield against the chaos. Queen Zana stood just beyond the flickering barrier, her violet gaze cold and unyielding, her words, "He'll burn out otherwise," ringing in my ears like a taunt. The core's whispers clawed at my mind, showing me visions of power, destruction, and a Zovara remade in my image, but Lyra's voice, low and fierce in my ear, kept me grounded. "You're mine, Jace," she'd said, and those words were a tether, pulling me back from the edge. The chamber trembled, the runes flickering wildly. And I knew this was it, the moment where everything would either come together or fall apart. "Lyra," I said, my voice hoarse from the strain, "if this core thing eats me, promise you'll at least get my ship fixed. It's got sentimental value." Her laugh was soft, almost lost in the core's roar, but it was enough to make my heart stutter. "You're not dying today, Jace," she said, her lips brushing my ear, her breath warm and steady. "We do this together, or not at all." Her fingers tightened, and I felt her energy. Bright, fierce, alien merge with mine, a connection deeper than the spire's pull, like two stars colliding in the dark. The core's whispers grew louder, a cacophony of ancient voices demanding more, but Lyra's presence was stronger, her fire weaving through me, steadying the chaos. I focused on her touch, her scent, the way her silver hair caught the rune light and pushed back against the core's hunger. "Okay," I said, my voice steadier now, "let's talk to this thing. Tell it to back off and let us live our lives." Lyra nodded, her hands guiding mine across the pedestal's runes, her movements precise despite the trembling chamber. The core's energy surged, a white-hot wave that made my vision blur, but Lyra's voice cut through, calm and commanding. "Core of Zovara," she said, her words resonating with a power that made the air hum, "we offer balance, not sacrifice. Take our bond, our unity, and be sated." The runes flared, and I felt it, a shift like the core was listening. The visions changed, no longer showing me as a destroyer or a god, but as something else. A human standing beside Lyra, her hand in mine, Zovara's towers gleaming under a peaceful sky. The core's hunger didn't vanish, but it softened, its whispers fading to a low hum as the runes stabilized, their light settling into a steady glow. Zana's voice broke the moment, sharp and furious. "No!" she shouted, her barrier flickering as she stepped forward, her robes billowing like a storm. "You cannot defy me, daughter. The core is mine to control, and so is he." She raised her hand, and the air crackled with her power, a new barrier forming to trap us against the pedestal. But it was weaker now, faltering, and I realized the core's shift had weakened her hold. "Lyra," I said, my voice low, "she's losing it. We've got this." I squeezed her hand, and she met my gaze, her eyes blazing with a mix of defiance and trust. Together, we pressed our hands harder against the pedestal, our energies entwined, and the core responded, its hum rising to a crescendo that drowned out Zana's commands. The barrier shattered, and Zana staggered, her violet eyes wide with shock. You dare?" she hissed, but her voice lacked its earlier strength. The spire's walls pulsed, the runes glowing brighter, and I felt the core's energy flow through us, not draining now but amplifying, like it was recognizing our bond as something stronger than Zana's ambition. Lyra stepped forward, her dagger still in hand, her voice steady. "Mother, your time of control is over. Zovara needs balance, not domination. And Jace," she glanced at me, her lips curving into a soft, fierce smile. "He's chosen me." Zana's face twisted, rage and disbelief warring in her eyes, but before she could respond, the core's light enveloped the chamber, a warm, golden glow that pushed back the shadows. The trembling stopped, the whispers silenced, and the spire stood calm, its runes pulsing in harmony. Zana fell to her knees, her power spent, her gaze locked on me, not with hunger now, but with something like resignation. "You've changed everything," she said, her voice soft, almost sad. "A human and my daughter." She rose slowly, her regal mask slipping back into place, but there was a crack in it now, vulnerability I hadn't expected. "Zovara is yours to protect, Lyra, and you, Jace, guard her well." She turned, her robes trailing as she walked out of the chamber, her guards falling in behind her without a word. The silence that followed was heavy, but it felt like freedom, like the first breath after a long dive. Lyra turned to me, her eyes shining, and before I could say anything, she pulled me into a kiss, deep, fierce, and full of everything we'd just fought for. Her hands tangled in my hair, her body pressed against mine, and I lost myself in her, the spire's glow fading into the background. When we finally pulled apart, I grinned, my heart still racing. "So, does this mean I'm officially off the Queen's trophy list?" Lyra laughed, a sound like starlight, and rested her forehead against mine. "You're mine, Jace Carver," she said, her voice soft but certain, "and I don't share." We left the spire hand in hand, stepping out into a Zovara transformed. The city's towers gleamed under a sky streaked with auroras, the air alive with the scent of blooming moss and the hum of a world at peace. My ship, the Stellar Wisp, was still a wreck, but Lyra promised her people could fix it. "Better than new," she said, with tech that'd make my old rust bucket look like a luxury cruiser. But as we walked through the city, Zavarians watching us with a mix of awe and curiosity, I realized I wasn't in a hurry to leave. "So," I said, nudging Lyra's shoulder as we passed a glowing tree, its branches swaying in greeting, "what's next for us? Saving more planets? Fighting off more cosmic squid, or maybe just dinner and a quiet night? She smiled, her golden eyes glinting with mischief. All of the above, she said, her hand squeezing mine. But first, I'm teaching you to dance like a Zavarian. You're terrible at it, by the way. I laughed, the sound echoing through the city, and for the first time in years, I felt like I'd found something worth staying for. Zovara wasn't home, not yet, but with Lyra beside me, it was close enough. The stars above us burned bright, and as we walked into the future, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, we'd face it together. As Jace and Lyra walked hand in hand through Zovara's glowing streets, the city's towers shimmered under the auroras, a testament to their victory. Their bond, forged in the spire's fire, promised new adventures, a blend of human heart and alien soul, ready to face whatever the stars held next. Personally, I think this story captures the thrill of defying fate and the beauty of unexpected love. What do you think? Would you choose Lyra's fire or Zana's power? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for joining us on this cosmic journey. Your likes, subscribes, comments, and shares fuel our passion to create more epic tales. Stay tuned for the next adventure.